Oh, we are live. Okay, so today we are talking about sex, love, and intimacy, and grounding through the lens of tantra and astrology. And we're currently in Taurus season, so it's all those lovely little things about growth and pleasure and all those lovely little things. And grounding and beauty and Venus and yes. So who am I first? I am Emily from Emily Lunar Astrology. I am an astrologer and an intuitive tarot card reader, and I have a marvelous moon obsession. There's nothing mild about that. So as anybody can see who might be here joining us, I will just introduce my guest, but welcome, Sarah. So, Sarah, let me just grab my phone. I don't want a camera. I want a bio. Or you could just introduce yourself if you like.
Well, I am just finishing my core certification through VITA, and I just finished U2 with Nightlight last weekend. That's the briefest of bios. And before that, I did an end-of-life care certification with a contemplative focus.
I found it. So we'll deepen your lovely little words there, so everyone knows a little bit more about what you do and a little bit. So Sarah Ojamae is an incessant seeker with a sole focus and emphasis on eros. Sarah is a sex, love, and relationship coach, completing her certification through the Tantric Institute of Integrated Sexuality, or the VITA Institute. She is a Hellenistic intimacy astrologer who trained through Adam Ellenbar's School of Nightlight Astrology, and she also studied contemplative end-of-life care at the Institute of Traditional Medicine in Toronto.
That's me.
That's you. Yes. So I'll just quickly say that I hold space for people to thrive through adversity and connect with their true nature, aligning with purpose using the wisdom tools of astrology, tarot, and the lunar cycle. So that's me as well. We are good to roll.
Beautiful.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. So would you like to dive in with your big three and a little bit about what they mean to you or mean in your life?
Well, my big three, I feel, are very boring, perhaps, because they are all one. I am a triple Taurus. So not everyone has that reaction. Taurus Sun, Taurus Rising, and Taurus Moon. And my Mercury is also in Taurus. So it's a lot of Taurus. Not the most Taurus I've ever seen, but enough, I feel. And what it means, it's difficult because it's in my first house, obviously, and I'm so steeped in it that the nuance, I think, is what's necessary when you have your big three in one place. You have to really deeply feel what that is. And I recognize as I'm speaking, I speak of it as feeling it rather than understanding it. So it does, to me, feel really sensual and bodily. And my chart ruler is in the 12th. It's an Aries Venus. So when we speak of the first as the helm, the fact that my chart ruler is in the house of shipwrecks and averse does not help me to speak to what it is to be a triple Taurus. Not easily, anyway. So maybe you have some insight for me, but that's maybe how I'd introduce it.
So where's your Mercury?
it's conjunct my ascendant, and Mercury was stationing the day I was born 2 retrograde. So perhaps significant.
So it's as though you're feeling into everything and embodying it, but sometimes a little hesitant to speak it because of the other placements. But
I can be. Yeah, I can be. I can take a moment. It's interesting because my Uranus is across from my Mercury in Scorpio. So sometimes I do feel electrified to speak something. Something feels deeply true. And I'm feeling into this. This is less like studied astrology and more from an embodied place. Having an Aries Venus, Jung associated fire with intuition. And I feel like things come to me through the body, Taurus, but quickly and intuitively. So sometimes it'll come fast and quick and I'll speak it. But other times I'll have to like really feel in to know what is true. And that's what I trust. But I find too, with having a lot of those placements in the first and in Taurus, I did so just lose what I was saying. But it was about having it be really embodied, essentially.
Yeah.
And deeply intuitive.
So then how did astrology find you, as it were?
During my Uranus opposition, when it was almost exact, my dad had died. And after my dad had died, I ended a relationship I had been in. And the way I phrase it, that relationship had felt as non-negotiable as a last breath after the death of my dad. And I had decided to move to Montreal for 3 months. I really needed to be somewhere beautiful, somewhere softer. Toronto feels very hard and square, very much glass and steel, which is where I'm based now. And it was while I was there, I went for drinks with a friend, and I was talking about how relationships are really important to me, and they feel like part of my life's path. And she put my information in her phone and flipped my chart to me on her phone. And at the time, it just looked like, I often say it looked like a web with many little insects, like a spider web. She said, of course you feel that way. Your North Node is in Libra. And what's so interesting is in Hellenistic, we don't put a lot of emphasis, other than to say something expands or is expanded or diminished by the presence of the North Node. But her understanding was different at that time. And so that's where it began. And I just, I was riveted and obsessive from that place.
So it kind of feels like the harmony needed to actually integrate all those embodiment pieces of you, and like I put on a bit of an email to you earlier that it's interesting how those non-negotiable moments of the planetary squares around midlife, we find that actually there's that catalyst for change, often through loss, grief, or transformation in some way. Yeah, it's powerful.
It's a really beautiful opportunity, I think, to truly align. And yeah, I think you said it gorgeously.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, it's in those moments where we have to change our path, change our direction, that actually we realize that there is more meaning to life than the superficial, the surface things. And you probably know within yourself, or the Taurus, the Scorpio, and even some of the Aries, it's kind of, we need a bit of movement, but we need the soul depth and the soul truth to be there as well.
The yearning was ever there, but I have a lot of retrograde planets, and I think that I felt really thwarted earlier in my life from being able to do all the things I hoped. And I could only really pursue what's now more my path on a volunteer basis. My grandfather had been a hospital chaplain the year that I lived with my grandparents. And so that opened me to being really present with people at end of life, because he would come home from work, from the hospital, talking about how he sat with someone who had no one. And he and my grandmother would hold funerals that no one attended. And so that was very early on part of my consciousness. And so there was something always there for me around, there's so much more than we're told to pursue, to speak to what many people experience when they experience those transits, a repurposing around soul or a deeper yearning. And for me, those things opened up at that time and became more possible than they've been in the past.
Yeah, I've experienced some of the unusual things, but also the kind of the sadness, the everything in between. Because I've worked within dementia care for 8 years, and yeah, you obviously see the end in many ways, but I actually experienced what I thought was quite a good death with somebody. Obviously within dementia care, you have to pick and choose and find some of those lucid moments of the people that you're caring for. But remarkably, often before someone passes, they have these moments where everything is clear as light as day, and you think, oh, I've never had such a cohesive, clear conversation with you, and now you're saying thank you, or you're saying make sure this person knows this, and it feels like the most important message you're trying to deliver. But it was quite lovely that this lady's daughter was with her at the time, and her daughter didn't know what to say or do, and she said, oh, you go in there, Emily, you hold her hand and you talk to her. I said, it's important she knows you're here as well, if you're happy to do so. And then within like a few minutes of me having a few words with this lady, her daughter then came and said, don't worry, Kathy, I'm here, and held her hand and said, you can go to sleep now. And it was literally a few minutes after that that she transitioned, and it was actually quite beautiful.
And maybe you're being able to show her, almost modeling how to hold that space. Made it more possible. Maybe the daughter sounds a little uncomfortable with, I don't know, but I hear that she needed you to go first and create that space or hold that space. And that was a beautiful thing you did.
Thank you. Yeah, I think in a way, I think it's difficult for a lot of people when they either lose loved ones or, well, even for us, we've known this lady, a lot of carers within the home there, we'd known this lady for 5 or 10 years or something. So even for us, it was kind of like, oh, we got to lose her. And we kind of knew the sort of signs because we'd seen a bit of her decline. But just like the few weeks or whatever afterwards as well, the daughter was saying, oh, how lovely it was that we all actually enjoyed looking after this lady as well. There were a few moments where there was some aggression, but they were few and far between. There were a lot of other people that had more aggression than she did. So that was thankful in a way that it made it easier to be in that situation. Yeah. But let's get a little bit more to you. So we've talked a little bit about astrology, but what came first out of your other two things that you've spent a lot of time studying, So the sex, love and relationship, or VITA coaching, or the end of life contemplative care?
The contemplative end of life care came first. It came after my father's death, because I had been a hospice volunteer and I'd taken care of other family members at end of life, but I found I couldn't give my father what he wished. So my dad had a deep need for psychosocial or psychospiritual care. He was having dreams that were difficult for him to process. He was having fears around death that he was raising during our visits. And when I brought those forward to my family, they weren't really prepared, because they weren't prepared to accept my father's death. They weren't prepared to receive what he was sharing with me. And it was difficult to get him the care that he needed around that. He was also in an ICU and not a candidate for hospice. So trying to get him home during and in between periods, lulls in COVID, so that he could have a death at home. There's a brief moment where it looked possible, but was not in the end. So even with the support of the hospice organization with which I've been a volunteer for a long time, I wasn't able to provide that to my own father. And that's a common narrative amongst people who work in this space, as perhaps you do know. So I wanted to deepen my capacity to resource others, even if I did it on a volunteer basis. I still was working with someone I'd been assigned. I ended up working with her close to 15 years, and she passed, was it November? October 30th, I think, was the date of 2024. So it was a very long relationship that we had. So that was first. And the bridge was, it was my dad's death as well, because it makes you really aware that time is not forever, and you need to consider what you want in this life. If I were to die at the age my father was, I only have about 20 years left. So what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? And I had always wanted to study tantra. So I started doing that. I did VITA Sacred Sexuality first, simultaneously. I just wanted it to be part of a lifestyle, a practice. And I was doing that, doing them both together. And I learned about the work of Joseph Kramer. He's a sexologist who brought, I don't know if you're familiar, but he with Barbara Corrales and I think Annie Sprinkle, brought Taoist energy work to men, predominantly gay men, during the AIDS crisis, because they still wanted to have a sensual experience, an energetic experience, without the risk of transmission. So they were studying, as Barbara Corrales talks about in a podcast with Layla Martin, whose methodology I'm studying, they would study Tantra and bring it back to the community and share it there. And it's just a really beautiful thing to bring to people at end of life, because part of the philosophy is that you live until you die. And sometimes, like, I worked with someone for 15 years. She was almost 90 when I began working with her. So making assumptions about the length of life or the length of hospice care is something we do very often, but we're mistaken to do. So how do we want to live, even if we have a diagnosis? And bringing that pleasure, sensuality, joy to people's lives, even when they're living with something difficult, was really meaningful to me. So that was one bridge. Another was Esther Perel's work. She talks a lot about growing up, her parents were the sole survivors in their families of the Holocaust. And she grew up around others who survived. And there were those who survived and those who chose to thrive. And she saw that the difference was eros in the broadest sense. So an aliveness, a pleasure in the body, the same theme again and again. And so to me, they're on a continuum, and it's about quality of life, and finding our deepest joy and pleasure in how we experience ourselves and others and how we connect. So that's the bridge. And the more deeply I went into my own study, the more it made sense to try to bring that to whomever I was working with, not only those at end of life, but whomever they were, whomever, like what I call the circle of love, because that needs to be defined by the person. Not, I don't work within the idea of a traditional family necessarily. So whomever they define as their circle of love, that care might have been extended to them. As my study has continued, it's evolved beyond that. I don't really know how I will focus it, and it's really hard to articulate. So I really appreciate that you're asking about it and giving me an opportunity to continue to integrate, because I do find I have had conversations with people in that space. There's a lot of anxiety around risk, for instance, bringing this kind of care, or public perception, bringing this kind of care to people at end of life. So very much like there's a lot of misunderstanding around the availability of home funerals. They're very much legal. There's a lot of possibility that exists at end of life for having non-traditional or unconventional care, but the public doesn't know about it because collectively, culturally, we're not really comfortable with these kinds of really, truly beautiful approaches, because I think we're not really comfortable with sex or death, two truly taboo topics, but two spaces of immense beauty.
Wow. Wow. That is so beautiful. I love how you call it the circle of love rather than traditional family. Actually, I have a Venus in Cancer. So for me, that's just, I didn't cry, but I internally did. And I was like, thank you so much. But yeah, I had no idea that you could have home funerals. I don't know whether that's something that's just within the US or Canada. I've not heard of it in the UK, but maybe it does exist here.
I think it does. But it's a little hard to access. But if you were to look into, there are soul doula trainings in the UK. Perhaps they could connect you. But there are practitioners working to support families if it's the wish of someone at end of life to have a home funeral. And what's really beautiful about it is that very often being with someone's body after they've passed is it. I don't know if there are studies to this effect, but the understanding I have from my training is it lessens our grief in a certain way because it allows us to integrate the experience in a again, the Taurus, in a very bodily, like we're not detached, it's not clinical, it's not removed from us. There were stories in my training of children who would like put flowers in the toes of someone who had passed because they felt safe and comfortable with end of life. It wasn't something cold and clinical and sterile and chemical. It was something authentic and, again, embodied and accessible and just truly like the shimmering, beautiful thing that can be possible.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
I had quite a slightly amusing experience. I attempted nursing many years ago, and I was doing what they were calling last offices with a nurse, and so I was a student. And I always remember it because of how my brain sort of processed things at the time. So I was in the room with him. The nurse got called away to do something. She said, "You're all right staying with him for a little while." And I was thinking, well, if hearing is one of the last things that you lose, I thought, well, I'm just going to carry on talking to him as though he is still living with us. And so, I mean, some people find this freaky, but I find it quite weird, but still okay to talk about, in the sense that this gentleman, I was washing his face and his eye opened at me, and I was thinking that's quite unusual. But then I gently sort of like brushed his eye closed for him, and I said, "Oh, was it just my imagination?" I said, "Oh, there's a song for that, John," and then started singing, "Just my imagination once again, running away with me." So, you know, just literally, wow. I have Chiron in Gemini, and I'm also Mercury in Gemini. It's quite a stallion there. But the embodiment piece of like helping him look his best to some extent, and actually make sure that he was clean and comfortable, to the point where obviously before we had to, in those days, put a shroud on, and then take him to what hospitals calls Rose Cottage. Apparently they don't call it Rose Cottage in very many hospitals, but in that particular hospital, that's what it was referred to, as opposed to the morgue. And I thought that was quite a lovely transition.
Yeah. Well, that's very much what's done, right, at end of life. It's cleaning the body, preparing the body, laying the body out. There are people making really beautiful handmade shrouds that are online and that are just gorgeous, especially if someone's willing to have a natural burial. So in those spaces, there are limitations on what can go in the grave. And so it sounds like you have experience with this kind of end-of-life care, which is really, really gorgeous. And it sounds like also a really beautiful comfort with it.
Yeah. I mean, I say, when I've spoken about it in the past, people are like, oh, like that would freak me out. I'm thinking, well, aren't we all just human?
Yeah.
And kind of have to respect the vessel of who he was whilst he was still alive. And who knows what when the soul leaves the body. Yeah.
It's interesting. That's an interesting question. Who knows? But I know that at an end of life, it's much like we talk about breath work and moving the breath through the body and down in, like down to, for instance, I'll just say genital breathing through VITA. So you're moving the breath down. When someone's at end of life, the breath moves up and out, right? It goes from the belly to the chest, into the throat, into the mouth, and out. It's the exact opposite. So talking about eros as life force, that energy shifts, and you can feel energy around you at end of life too. I felt it move sort of out as a person was passing, sort of enveloping the room, or sort of being around the body, which is, I also find really beautiful, that we come in, like the idea is we come into a body in astrology, we talk about the ascendant as where breath moves body, meets body, soul meets body. And at end of life, we leave. And it's, to me, that there's this gorgeous continuity there. Like eros is in our ascendant as well, if we think of it from that perspective.
Do you also work with eros and psyche and astrology? I'm just interested.
Sort of, only when it's like relevant to someone's chart. If I see something where that constellational myth feels meaningful. I have done, Kira Ryberg and Chloe Margarita did a lecture. I have paid attention to that. Where relevant, I will bring it in. And it's a beautiful lecture. I'd refer you to it, but not per se as...
Sure. Okay, so how do you describe tantra? What's your sort of definition that you would use if someone says, what is that?
Unhelpfully, I would say it's a liberation practice. Because That's resonant for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've followed Layla Martin for some years through YouTube, and now she's got this Tantric Life as a podcast, doesn't she? But yeah, and I did end up buying my own nephrite jade crystal egg.
Oh, gorgeous. That is a tool that produces shimmering, beautiful experiences as well, I can certainly say. They're really beautiful practices.
Do you have a favorite one that you go to for yourself or for or recommend to clients?
I really love one of our first that we did. So we have a first trimester where we focus on ourselves and our own work, and then we do a coaching methodology, a semester devoted to a methodology. And the very first practice is a total love practice in the first trimester. And it's a heart breath, an 8 directional breath. It brings in the felt sense. And there's a piece where it brings in what I will say the active and the passive. Some people will say the yin and the yang. I like to work with the sun and the moon. And so the guidance around the meditation is to breathe in all the sort of feminine energy, the masculine energy, and the non-dual energy. So I work with sun, moon, and Mercury, as I said. And then you're working with the felt sense in the body with these different kinds of breath. And it ends with either stillness or some kind of expression of that felt sense. So maybe that's a dance. And it's really, really beautiful, but it is long. It can also end with the Taoist breast massage, or for men with, I'm not sure what I can and cannot say on this channel. So a genital massage, I'll just say, because that is where it opens the heart for men. I can't hear you, Emily. I think you're muted.
Oh, yes, yeah, so I muted to type back to somebody asking whether they could ask questions. I said, of course, ask away. And they said it's a personal question, not related to the topic. So I will still say to them that they're feel free to ask, and it's up to what you feel comfortable with in replying.
I'll do my best.
Yeah. What were we? Oh, I've forgotten where.
You were asking about favorite practices, and I was just saying it's a heart-opening practice that works with the heart breath, which is in through the nose, out through the mouth, 30 repetitions, and then holding and feeling the heart be opening, and then a repetition of that is followed by an 8 directional breath. So maybe feeling an opening at the heart center, breathing out in 8 directions, followed by a meditation that I work with the sun and the moon and Mercury for, so that, you know, the masculine, the feminine, and the non-binary energies of the universe. And then it ends often with a Taoist breast massage, or for men, a genital massage, because there's a polarity piece around what opens the heart for which human being. But it could also end with stillness, attuning to the felt sense, and then finding the inner direction. Like, is the impulse to dance? Is the impulse to shake? Is the impulse, like, what is the inner direction? So.
Yeah. So you could like decide whether you wanted to do yoni breathing and release work, or whether you wanted to just dance it out, shake it out, whatever the energy and momentum was, I guess.
As I approach it, yes, I try to make everything really attuned to you. What are your needs? What is your body saying in this moment? So I don't have, what we have are all kinds of tools, and I try to meet you with those tools. And so if you say to me, I have a tightness in my chest, I might ask you to breathe into that, to like bring your consciousness into that center and speak to it. What does it have to say to you? What is the felt sense of it? And then we might work with different kinds of breath with it and see how it shifts and just what emerges from that space. So it's very individual.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. We did have a question, but I'm going to show it, but I'm just going to say why it might not be the best thing to answer. So this person has asked, when will I get a good job, and how does my career look like once I started? My college is ending soon. I don't personally ask questions like this, answer questions like this online. I suggest people book a reading, but it's up to you what you feel comfortable doing.
That is not my forte. I feel like maybe that's a tarot reading or a transit reading with you. That might, with someone's chart, that might be a really good way to find those kinds of a sense of how to answer those things.
Yeah, sure. I'd suggest that for anything of that ilk, of like personal questions that are specific in such a way that it's actually a paid reading, that would be either tarot or astrology, or if it involves embodiment work, then I would obviously recommend Sarah.
I see.
So I had a question of what has been the most groundbreaking or transformation for clients in tantra or sex, love and relationship work for you, or the client?
I find that when people do embodiment work, there are often revelations because we're very often, culturally, we're in our heads, we're not in our bodies. So when we attune to our bodies, truths come forward that we're not always conscious of, very much like dreams. I once did a Jungian dream workshop many, many years ago as a participant, and our dreams are just a breath, I often say, ahead of us. They give revelations. The same is true of the body. So we work with desire in the VITA methodology. So we will be clear about what someone wants to explore, and then we'll try to go into it in an embodied sense, and as a visualization. What it's a visualization meditation, I'll call it, and there's a body mapping that goes with that. And in that body mapping, this is very often a first session, not always, but very often. And what emerges there can be astonishing, very often is astonishing for clients. I don't want to overpromise, but we come in with something in our heads and our bodies reveal something different around how we feel about what we want to explore. And that's very often the beginning of the work.
I guess it's where things are felt and the body holds a score and that sort of thing. That really,
yes, but in a really beautiful and positive way. It's almost like I know you're very into tarot, so like the hermit holds the light in front of us. It's the light in front of us. It's guiding us. We can kind of lean forward into it and follow it. Like, what is there to understand about our desire and aligning with that desire? And what I really love in terms of Tantra being liberatory is it's not my truth that matters, it's your truth. So what is your body telling you about how you feel about whatever it is you're bringing forward? And how do we work with that? And how do you resolve maybe any conflict, if you have any, around like what emerges very often brings maybe there is some hurt to integrate and align with, but it is about your own deepest alignment with yourself, much like astrology gives us that opportunity to do. The deepest alignment with our souls, ourselves, and it's really, really gorgeous work, in my experience.
there's nothing light about it. It's the deep truths of so many things here. I love that, because actually, as you say, we're very much in our heads a lot of the time. But I think both astrology and any kind of embodiment work, whether it's tantra, whether it is end-of-life care and all these other things, they do leave that space open for people to be held in a different way and to process the things that the shadow work, basically, to process the shadow work and process anything that comes up.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, I would say too that Jung has that concept of the golden shadow. So it can be, sometimes it's the most beautiful things that we don't allow ourselves. We don't allow ourselves to see how much we long for love or believe in love, and aligning with that rather than it being our pain, it can be our hope. And I've seen that choke people up because they didn't, in their head, they're telling themselves one thing about what's possible for them, but their heart hopes for something else. And so bringing their experience together is the work. And it's really, it can be, yes, it's deep work, but it's really, really hopeful, beautiful work too.
And again, extremely valuable work.
I do hope. I do feel.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on Taurus season and Uranus coming into Gemini tomorrow?
I feel Taurus season should be a gorgeous balm for all we've been through this year. And we should take full advantage, because we know that there will be other difficult passages in the year next, the rest of this year. So really, truly, in Toronto, the buds, like, we have cherry blossoms in a park where many people assemble, and they're just cusping blooming. They're in what's called, there's people who watch them and report on them, and they're what they call the fifth stage, where they're just like they're just really enjoy the unfurling of this season and all the gorgeousness and lushness it offers us. Let that beauty, I often speak of, like, in my darkest moments in my life, beauty has been a salve. So letting that be true for us. And I think that's true with Uranus too, going into Gemini, because it will be sextiling Aries and Saturn. Saturn and Neptune in Aries, and also Pluto in Aquarius. And I think we might get something, I'm not sure I'm right about this, but I feel like maybe some really beautiful art that will sustain us. Work that, like, Gemini is associated with Castor and Pollux. And I took all possible courses that Jason Hawley offered through Astrology University. And I know that there's something about St. Elmo's fire, like that electricity at the top of a ship. And I'm not sure what it means right now in this moment, but I know that that energy of, I think maybe it suggests that the storm is passing. I'm not sure. Someone will, I'm sure, fact check me. But that energy, that electricity, there's something in that that also we feel with Uranus. So I think there's something really hopeful for new possibilities around how we express. I know Liz Green talks about Aries being much more spiritual than is acknowledged very often. She, in the Astrology of Fate, she talks about how she knows is like more of that, like, and she includes people with Aries placements who have a spiritual bent than are, for instance, athletic or warring, as best I remember. So having that sort of electrical breakthrough energy with that spiritual epiphany energy, and then that depth of transformation that comes from Aquarius. You know, we very often reduce that to the people, something humanitarian. I just think there's some other kind of deep balm in creativity. And like Gemini is associated with, people often talk about the many, like many truths. Maybe we get much better at holding many truths and letting that hold us through hard times. Maybe many new books, albums, very cool things. I don't know. That's my feeling.
Yeah. So I was thinking sort of the Uranus and Gemini. Well, I can think of the star card. It's like the vulnerability. How comfortable are we being exposed with our truths, with those multiple truths, as you say? And I want that to outweigh the AI revolutions. I want that to be the case, rather than actually too much focus on the things we can't control with technology, and will any kind of dangers and things actually be exposed and then quashed before they're actually too damaging for the world at large.
I love that. I love the idea that maybe our hopes, our very human hopes, through all that suggestion of art I just made, can be expressed through the technology rather than having it be commanding us. We will find ways to relate to it differently that are empowering rather than so disempowering.
That's it. Yeah. I was going to say right on the money. How very Taurian.
I'm so glad that resonated.
Oh, is there actually? I think I want to ask you: have you got any favorite books on the things you studied?
Oh, which ones? Like, do you want
all of it?
I really love Ren Butler's work, both for. So when I'm doing both of his books, so The Archetypal Universe and The Astrology of Love and Relationships, I go to them a lot. I do love Liz Green's The Astrology of Fate. I find that the constellational Greek myths, so I pull from her, and also all of that work that I mentioned, Jason Hawley's webinars on, now drawing a blank, I'm wishing I could remember. They're all of the webinars through Astrology University. I know Angela. I love her. And I still have to read a number of the books on Tantra, but one that I'm finding really valuable is Kundalini Tantra, particularly as I work with different chakras. I know you have an interest in the chakras. Last year I was working a lot with the throat because I had an experience where it opened. And in the last week, I had a chakra cleanse for my birthday. And so I'm feeling into the sacral in a very different way. And it was my go-to resource. I love urban tantra because it's so inclusive and it allows for practices for the individual. So I think people don't really think of tantra for the self. Barbara Corellis brings in a lot of self-practice, but also kink. So she makes it really modern and accessible. I could keep going.
I haven't read it, but I know a book that I was thinking of reading at one point was Existential Kink. I'm wondering whether that was actually more to do with, I don't know what it was more to do with.
I understand it has more to do with shadow work than but more shadow work than more the existential than kink, I would say.
Okay, thank you. You've just actually summed up what I was wondering. Although I'm open to either.
Beautiful.
Anyway.
You have a gorgeous energy, Emily.
Thanks.
It's
just expose myself live on YouTube, as you do.
I love you for it. I do. I truly love you.
On that note, is there a sort of, actually, I think you kind of shared a bit on the practices side, but if there's anything that comes to mind that you think, oh, we could just literally walk someone through something for like a minute or something, by all means, that would be cool.
Suddenly so blank.
Oh.
I would just describe that heart breath again to start.
Yeah.
It's in through the nose, out through the mouth. You would do 30 inhalations and exhalations, and then hold it as long as you can. I would do that and then feel into the heart center. Then repeat that. We do it twice, but I would say 3 times is a little more beautiful. I don't know why, just intuitively. And then feel into your own heart. What's there? What's the felt sense? So what sensations are there? What emotions are there? And maybe deepen the breath. Allow the consciousness. I think by the time you've done that breath, you will have already dropped the consciousness into the heart center. But if you haven't, maybe have a conversation with your heart and like speak to your heart, ask your heart what it wants you to know today. As a really brief and maybe a little bit, forgive me for being a little bit cheesy, but there's something that there is something often that will be when you actually ask. When I ask clients to ask themselves, their hearts, they'll be surprised by what actually comes forward. They're like, oh, that's really weird. But it's also really often what they need to hear, what we need to hear. So cheesy, but potent sometimes.
Yeah. I do meditate and do yoga daily. As you probably seem to know about me. It feels like you've researched quite a bit on me.
I've just seen a couple episodes.
Yes. So, I have to ask everybody this. So how do you manifest your dreams into reality and stay consistent with any goals or projects you're working on?
Wow. 2 things. I mean, one, the shimmering thing is the sex magic, which of course you know about. So rituals around using your sexual energy to manifest in simplest, I think. But also I'm a triple Taurus. So I just get up and like very slowly. I remember I once saw Rick Levine say, Taurus may be slow to get started, but hard to stop. Something like that. So I may get up very slowly and have my espresso very slowly in the morning, but I just keep working through things. And so I think that is actually the truth. That is how, this is controversial, but I really don't feel Taurus is stubborn. My only real stubbornness has been a kind of stupidity about continuing my work well past when I need rest. To the point of sometimes hurting myself. So it's not good. I'm not advocating for it. Confess. You're not the only to confess. So once I tried to train for a marathon and I continued running when it was clear I needed to stop. This is what I'm like part of what I'm referring. So part of it is just stubborn insistence. Oh, I just confess stubbornness also. That was unexpected. It's truly unexpected. As I said, people sometimes, when you speak to yourself, sometimes things emerge. But that stubborn insistence on continuing despite.
Oh, thank you, Angela.
Angela is a VITA coach as well.
Is she? Oh, brilliant.
Mm-hmm. She's a beautiful human.
Well, just from the glimpse of her comments, I can see she's very encouraging.
Yeah.
we like.
Yes. Gorgeous people.
Is there anything else that we haven't mentioned, or anything you want to reiterate that you'd like to share? Anything?
No, I'm happy to have a conversation. This is a beautiful conversation, as Angela just said. I'm happy we could connect.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
So where can people find you and connect with you?
I have a website. It's my name. It's very simple. It's ever evolving. I'm trying to find ways to integrate all of the things that I'm learning in a way that's meaningful to other people. It's really challenging to essentialize, but I am trying, and hopefully it'll become clearer over time. But yes, sarahojamae.com.
Yes. And it has to be said that on your website, from what I saw, which one was that? Was that actually sarahojamae.com, where you'd edited you'd put a longer bio with things that you'd studied and things, and that was really beautiful. I encourage people to read that.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Angela, for joining us as well on the comments. We appreciate it. Yes, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me today. And I encourage people, if you enjoyed our conversation and you think other people need to hear it, then please do like, subscribe, follow, review, or comment wherever you find this podcast. And do, of course, check out Sarah's website, sarahojamae.com, and her Instagram and Substack as well. And I think I will just say thank you and wrap up here.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome to stay, Sarah, for a little bit after if you want to.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining.